Hey guys, welcome to episode 1 of Minecraft for the Missing, the show that brings you the mix of your favorite game with a true crime story. I am 100% not a professional at researching cases, nor am I a professional at Minecraft. I'm not even that good at it. I've been a Bedrock player until recently, mainly on Pocket Edition and Switch, a little bit on the Xbox a long time ago. So, before we get started, I do want to say very quickly that this show isn't meant to be disrespectful to anyone involved. In fact, the reason this show exists is exactly the opposite. The information included is just what is publicly available online for anyone. I am a Minecraft fan as well as a fan of learning. I also hate how many people out there don't get the coverage that they deserve. There are so many people who have vanished or have been senselessly killed and don't get the exposure that they need in order to be solved or to put pressure onto the authorities or the people that are actually involved in the crime itself. So the way that the actual show is going to work is in the beginning I will quickly give an overview of what's going to be happening in the episode, and then when we get into the case we won't be mentioning what's happening in the video portion very much. I made this decision because I feel that talking about killing zombies and that sort of thing would be extremely disrespectful. I'm just here to share cases and to play the game that I love. So with all of that, let's get into it. So, for the first episode, we're going to be just doing normal starter things. I did choose this particular world on purpose. I actually started this series once before and only got one video into it. It was the same case revolving around Lori Ann Boffman and her disappearance, but I wanted to have an island dedicated to the missing and one for the murdered, so I chose to start over, and I found a world that is just a bunch of big islands near one another. The island that we spawn on is actually the one that we will end up becoming the missing island. So we're just going to be going around and collecting random things in this episode. We'll come upon a village near the end, and we're actually going to cut away to the island for the missing and start with the village in episode 2. I almost forgot to mention what the island's actually for. So for each case, I will be putting an armor stand with some dyed armor and a sign next to it with the missing or the murdered individual's name and date of death or disappearance on the sign. Some of them will also have something representing them as well. For example, in this first episode, I do place a campfire beside the armor stand to represent the barbecue that Lori Ann Boffman went to the last day that she was seen. I do also have some vanilla tweaks packs on the world, leaf decay, mob heads, just some little things like that. Nothing too much that will really affect the game, just some things to make life easier or a little more fun. Alright, so just real quick, I wanted to say, if you guys enjoy this type of video and the way that I'm covering these cases, give it a big thumbs up. I feel really weird saying this type of thing. It's not something that I'm used to doing, but if you could, just like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, try to get these cases out as far as we can to try to help get them solved. That way that we can bring some closure to the families of the people that have vanished or have lost their lives. Lori Ann Boffman, born Lori Ann Stubbs, was a 45-year-old mother of 3 living in Liberty Township, Ohio. On August the 4th, 2006, she was in a great mood. Her daughter Raquel was home from college, and her son was visiting that weekend from Cincinnati. She had also won $1,000 from the lottery that day. Now, what Lori did with that money actually tells me exactly what kind of person that she was. As I mentioned, 2 of her children were home that weekend. The third isn't actually ever mentioned in any of the articles, so I'm not sure where they were. So, because her 2 children were home that weekend, Lori actually decided to throw a barbecue for her friends and family. At 4 a.m. on August the 5th, 2006, Lori visited a store with an unknown male friend, and she placed an order for $500 in food for the party that she would be picking up later that same day. But Lori would never actually arrive to pick up that order. She had recently found out that she was a diabetic and was placed on medication for it, as well as some anti-anxiety medication around the same time. There was a reference that said that Lori had an unidentified mental disorder, but I couldn't find this mentioned anywhere else, so do take that with a huge grain of salt. When she disappeared, Lori was still trying to get used to the new routine and figuring out how the meds would affect her. In particular, the anti-anxiety medication. On the afternoon of August the 5th, the same day she had placed the order, Lori arrived at Mill Creek Park without the hundreds of dollars in food. When asked about her mother's mood that day, Raquel said that her mother was acting strangely. She said, quote, "I don't know what she was going through, but she wasn't normal that day. She was crying that she didn't have anyone to take care of anymore." End quote. Sometime before 6:30 p.m., it was said that she left to drop a male friend off at his house, as well as some leftovers. It's not specified if this is the same friend that went with her that morning to the store when she placed the order or not. The names of this individual or these individuals have never been released to the public. She was also alleged to be going home to change clothes and pick up that order of food and bring it back to the park. Around 6:30 p.m., Lori left her home on Holly Drive in Girard, Ohio, leaving behind her purse, wallet, and medications. The friend that was with her, that she would be dropping off, said that they left her house and that she was in such a bad mood and driving so erratically that they no longer felt safe in the car due to her, quote, unstable behavior. I am including some virtual air quotes on unstable behavior. That's allegedly what the friend actually said. Due to this, the friend had asked her to pull over and that they would just walk the rest of the way home. This was the last known sighting of Lori. The next part of this mystery picks up between 3:12 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Lori's blue 1992 Mercury Sable was found on the front lawn of a library in Youngstown, Ohio, near Sheehy Street, which is just the next town over from Liberty Township, where Lori lived. Someone had called in and reported a noise that had sounded like a car accident. When officers arrived on the scene, the car had some minor damage, seeming to have run off the road through a residential lawn, hitting a swing set, and ending up in the front of the library. There are some reports of the car hitting a tree as well as the wall of the library. It's not clear from the small pieces of information that we have which of these may be correct or entirely false. Regardless, when the car was found, it was still running and the driver's side door was open. Inside the car, police found her glasses, which she needed to see, and some paperwork. It's not mentioned what the papers were, just that some were scattered inside the car, so they're probably not important. What was missing, though, was Lori. She was nowhere to be found. And unfortunately, that's pretty much all the information that we have regarding Lori's disappearance. Police searched the car, but didn't really find anything. At least nothing that they've told the public about. They say foul play isn't completely ruled out, but that they don't have any evidence of foul play either. A relative of Lori's, Wesley Womack, says that of course Lori's disappearance has been the hardest on her 3 children, saying, quote, "It's been a long, hard road, with her children trying to stay in school, keep their grades up, trying to move on with their lives, not knowing what happened to their mother or where she is." End quote. So this next part is going to be more theories and opinions than anything. So much of it is just alleged and how either I and or other people feel. I do have some things that are mentioned in this next part that are theories I found online, on Reddit, or in articles, things like that. So Lori's been missing for over 15 years at this point. And it just really bothers me that no one has any idea what happened to her. I know that it's like that for a lot of people. But this is the first case that I really delved into and tried to research as best I could. There's really not a lot of information on it, though. They don't even tell you what library her car was found at, which I find extremely odd that they only say that it's near Sheehy Street. Someone on Reddit had mentioned that the closest library to Sheehy Street is the East Branch Library on Early Road, and that's literally blocks away from Sheehy Street. So I'm not sure why they would say Sheehy when there are other streets that are a lot closer to that library. So if East Branch Library is the correct library, then that poses a big problem because it's surrounded by what seems to be a lot of wooded area when you check on like Google Maps and things like that. So then if she was having negative side effects from her new medications, she could have easily gotten confused and ran off the road in her car, which could have caused maybe a head injury, which wouldn't have helped the situation, and maybe she went to find help and accidentally wandered into those woods and gotten lost. There is also what seems to be a large stream known as Dry Run that runs for miles and miles inside of that largest wooded area. I don't know how deep it actually is, but she could have fallen into that and drowned, possibly, or been carried away and just no one's found her yet. As I mentioned before, she also could have just gotten lost in those woods and succumbed to the elements. There is also a pretty large lake nearby called McKelvey Lake. I don't really think that she could have made it to that lake on foot on her own with nobody seeing anything at all. Although it was the middle of the night and most people probably were in bed, so that really could go either way. I do think that should be taken into account. The time frame that I mentioned earlier is very large. Again, it was from 3:12 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. It just depends on which resource you use to get the information, but that is the middle of the night. So I guess it's possible that she could have not been seen. It just really seems unlikely. Because that is so far away. It is a couple of miles, it looks like. So, in my opinion, what happened was she was having some side effects from her medication. She wasn't used to it, and this caused the strange behavior that everyone was mentioning. Like Raquel, her daughter, had mentioned her crying and talking about not having anyone to take care of, things like that, and possibly causing the accident, which could have caused a head injury. And she wandered into the woods for help just out of confusion and is probably still there. And my opinion, there just hasn't been enough put into looking for her to find her. This woman's been laying there for 15 years most likely, and the police just haven't looked for her. Another theory is that she just decided to take off and start a new life. That's actually why the Dallas FBI is in charge of the case. Lori has family that lives or did live in Dallas or the Dallas area, and the authorities thought that she may have left for there and could be using her maiden name of Stubbs. There's no proof of this that's out there, though, that we know about. If you think about Raquel's quote, Lori was complaining that day about not having anyone to take care of anymore, so that could, I guess, be evidence that she was considering finding something more now that she didn't have that to sort of fill the empty nest feeling. It just doesn't seem plausible to me. She seemed to be so family oriented just from the little bit that we do know. Also, I go back to the lottery winnings with this one. She literally spent half of it on food for her loved ones. If she was going to take off, would she have spent all that instead of having it to help her start a new life? I mean, to me, that just seems like common sense, but I could very easily be mistaken. I did want to mention this next point just briefly because it's a theory that's out there. I don't believe it. It's just because I haven't seen any proof of it, so I'm not sure where the theory actually came from. But Reddit, of course it's from Reddit, has a few people that say she used the other $500 to buy drugs. They don't say what kind, but just drugs, and that's what was going on with her that day and contributed to her disappearance. So until we have proof that she was using drugs... Oh, and just to be clear, my definition of using drugs doesn't include marijuana. Feel however you want about that, but I am not including it in my definition. So, yeah, until we have concrete proof, I don't believe this theory at all. Like I said, the only reason I'm mentioning it is because this is the theory section, and it's a theory out there on Reddit. Just take it with the biggest grain of salt you can. So, it is of course possible that someone did something to Lori. I mean, it's always a possibility for anybody to become some sort of victim. It's an unfortunate reality of the world we live in right now. And really always has been. These things happen every day, all day long, to every gender, of every age. It just doesn't seem very likely in this case. She could have been robbed because of the money she had won, but the articles say she left her wallet at home as well as her purse. So if someone knew about the money and tried to rob her, and she didn't have it, they could have become angry and harmed her because of this. There again was no evidence of this either, though. Devil's advocate here, there's also no evidence that this didn't happen, which I believe is why the police don't say, that they're ruling foul play out completely, because they don't have any evidence that it didn't happen. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Dallas, Texas FBI is in charge of the case of Lori Ann Boffman, Lori Ann Stubbs, due to her familial connections there. Although it's been 15 plus years, I feel like she would have arrived at her family's home in Texas by now. Lori is listed as an endangered missing person, and she would be 60 years old now. She is an African-American female and had long black dreadlocks at the time of her disappearance. She is 5 foot 9 inches, 180 pounds, and has brown eyes. Lori also has a scar on her abdomen. She is a diabetic with a possible mental stability concern. She also has a partial dental plate and silver amalgam and does wear glasses to see. If anybody knows anything about this, or you saw something or have actually seen Lori since August the 5th, 2006, please give the Dallas FBI field office a call at 972-559-5315. Even if you think the information you have isn't important, call anyway. Let the FBI decide if it's important or relevant. Sometimes the smallest piece of information can get the ball rolling and help solve a case. I'm going to try to do this every episode, but sometimes they may not be as relevant, so these episodes may not have them. I don't take credit for coming up with the idea. One of the articles had 4 or 5 of the questions at the end that I used for my research. It was an article covering Lori's case on the Where Are They podcast website, which I will have linked down in the description. So question 1, we have, who was the friend that was with Lori at the store in the middle of the night? Question 2, why was her car left running at the scene? Question 3, were her medications the cause of her strange behavior? And question 4, the most important question, where's Lori? And to tack on a 5th question, which I believe I mentioned earlier, was the friend that was the last seen with Lori the same one that went with her to the store that morning when she ordered the food? And if anyone knows how I can learn more about Lori's case, please let me know. I clearly am just starting out, and the information on Lori's case is very minimal, and some things contradicted themselves or didn't make sense when compared to other resources. So if you know of any actual news coverage I can see with different information, I know it was a long time ago, but I want to try to help this family get answers. It's why I decided to start this series. I hate that so many terrible things happen, and so most people don't get the spotlight that they deserve and need to help solve the cases. I mean, just look at how many people were found during the search for Gabby Petito. So much effort was put into searching for this one person, which is amazing. I was just as fascinated as everyone else when this case was happening, but there was so much put into it that 9 other bodies were found. We need to put that energy on more cases so that more people can be found and or laid to rest. Could any of them been found alive if authorities had acted sooner, or if there was more awareness? Maybe. I don't know the specifics of all 9 of those. I just want to help how I can to bring awareness to more people that have disappeared or have been killed and their families don't have any answers. I do understand that there are funding issues and things like that. It's not a perfect world, and it's a broken system, but they need to put the same energy into finding people so that many more people can possibly come back home. I do hope that soon Lori's family can get some closure, even if it's not the outcome that they hope for. At least they would know what happened to Lori. Alright, that is all that we have for today's case. I do want to thank you guys again for joining me on this journey. Hopefully we can spread awareness and help get some of these cases solved and help these families get the answers that they deserve. Again, if you like the way that I'm covering these cases, leave a like, subscribe, and share these videos to help get them out there for other people. If you have any ideas for cases that you would like to be covered that aren't getting much or any exposure, no matter when they happened, last week or last century, if I can find information about them, I will do my best to add them to the list. So until next time, stay safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.